Atlanta didn't slow down for anyone, especially not for a girl like Brielle Knox. At just 17, Brielle had seen more alleyways than classrooms, more broken glass than birthday candles. Abandoned by the system, ignored by society, and too proud to beg, she earned her meals the hard way, digging through bins behind restaurants, collecting bottles, and trading scrap for change. She called the space beneath the Walker Street overpass home. Just wide enough for a tarp, some milk crates, and a busted air mattress, it was where her nights began and ended, when they weren't interrupted by cold rain or patrol lights. That Thursday morning started no differently. The sun had barely crept past the skyline, and Brielle was already on the move, hoodie up, pushing her cart along the back end of Decatur Street. Her hands were calloused, her fingers numb, but her eyes still held fire. Then she saw it. Behind a row of trash bins behind a luxury Italian bistro, a fine place she had never dared approach before, something caught her eye. It was a shoe. Not the usual kind she found and flipped for $5. This one was sleek, black, leather, Gucci or something like that. And then she saw the leg. Brielle froze. There, inside the dumpster, was a man. A white guy. His suit ripped. His shirt stained. His skin pale. He looked like he belonged in a high-rise, not a garbage bin. She dropped her cart and rushed over, pushing the lid higher. His face was bruised, his lips split. But it wasn't just the injuries, it was the deadness in his eyes, barely open. He reeked of expensive cologne mixed with bourbon and blood. Was he dead? She reached for her phone, then remembered, stolen 2 weeks ago. "Sir," she whispered, touching his shoulder. He groaned. "Alive. Hey, can you hear me?" His lips moved, barely audible. She leaned in. I didn't mean to," he mumbled before losing consciousness. Brielle looked around. No cops, no cameras, no bystanders, just her. Something in her told her to walk away. Let the next person find him. But she didn't. Instead, she tugged at his arm. He was heavy, limp. After several tries, she managed to slide him out onto the concrete, his head resting against her shoulder. She flagged down an older man with a dolly near the back of a liquor store. "Help me," she said. "Please. I ain't gettin' involved in no overdosed white boy." "He's not a junkie," she snapped. "He's rich. Look at that watch. Help me." The man hesitated, then helped load him onto the dolly. They wheeled him 3 blocks through the service alley, back to Brielle's makeshift home. She laid him on her mattress, covering him with a blanket made from old coats. She grabbed a bottle of water, dabbed his face, and wiped the blood from his brow. Hours passed. When he finally opened his eyes again, it was near sundown. Streetlights flickered above them. Brielle sat close, arms folded, watching him. Where am I?" "Safe," she said. "Under an overpass. You were in a dumpster." His eyes flicked to her, glazed and disoriented. "Why?" "That's what I was gonna ask you," Brielle replied. "You looked like someone who ain't supposed to be there." He coughed, tried to sit up, winced, and collapsed again. "What's your name?" she asked. "Daniel," he whispered. "Daniel Whitaker." She blinked. She'd seen that name before, in the news. Whitaker Technologies, one of the youngest tech billionaires in the country, vanished 3 days ago after missing a keynote in San Francisco. She stared at him, this broken man lying on her mattress under a bridge, who had been all over CNN just a few days ago. He was supposed to be on top of the world. And now he was here, with her. And what she just pulled out of his inside jacket pocket, the folded piece of paper. It wasn't a receipt. It was a death note. Brielle didn't know what to do with the note. It was just 5 words scribbled in shaky handwriting. "Tell them I gave up." She stared at it, heart pounding. The man lying next to her, Daniel Whitaker, was a billionaire who'd built one of the most powerful tech companies in the world. She'd seen his face on Times Square billboards, on the side of subway buses, and once, flickering on the busted TV that played in the barbershop window up the street. But this wasn't that man. This was someone broken. Someone who had written a goodbye to the world. And now, he was in her world. Under an overpass, wrapped in tattered blankets, breathing slow and shallow. She placed the note inside a shoebox she used to keep her few valuables. A rusted key, an old birthday card from her foster sister, a tiny pocket Bible. Now this paper felt heavier than all of them. Daniel stirred. His lips were cracked, his breathing rough. "Water," he whispered. She helped him sip from a dented bottle. He blinked at her. "Why are you helping me?" "I don't know," she answered honestly. "Maybe because nobody ever helped me." He looked around, graffiti-tagged pillars, the clatter of nearby traffic, the faint smell of burning oil. Then his eyes rested on her face. "You live here." "Yeah." "No one should have to." She tilted her head. "Says the guy who just crawled out of a trash can." Daniel chuckled weakly, but it turned into a cough. She handed him an old hoodie to prop up his head. "Why were you there?" she asked. He hesitated, then winced. I ran." "From what?" He looked at her, eyes clouded. "Everything. Pressure. Expectations. Lies. I thought I could control it all, but—" His voice trailed off. "Someone close to me betrayed me. Tried to take it all." Brielle knew that kind of pain. Not on a billion-dollar scale, but betrayal was betrayal. Whether it came from a business partner or a foster parent who promised they'd never give you away. "You look like someone who ain't used to losing," she said. Daniel closed his eyes again. "I wasn't. Until now." They fell into silence. The night crept in cold and damp, and Brielle moved closer to the fire barrel, feeding it scraps of newspaper and a broken hanger. She didn't sleep that night. She sat up, watching him breathe, half afraid he might stop. The man who once owned private jets and digital empires now lay inches from rats and roaches. By morning, he tried to stand. She helped him to a nearby bus bench. He looked around as though seeing the city through new eyes. "Is this what people go through every day?" he asked. "Worse," she said. "You got me watching over you. Most people don't get that luxury." He nodded slowly, visibly shaken. Then he looked her in the eye. "What's your name?" "Brielle." He took a shaky breath. "Brielle. I don't think I can go back." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've lost everything. My board, my money, my name. All they need is proof I'm unstable, and it's over. And they've already started that story." She folded her arms. "So what? You're just gonna let them win?" Daniel stared at her. "I'm just tired." She stood up abruptly. "Well, you're not dead. And as long as you're breathing, you've got a shot. I don't care what you did or how far you fell. If you gave up, then yeah, they win." His lip trembled, but he nodded. "You don't get it," he whispered. "They have lawyers, press, power." "And I've got truth," she interrupted. "And apparently, so do you." Then she reached into the shoebox and held up the note. This is how close you were to disappearing forever. You want that to be the last thing you leave behind." Daniel didn't answer. Instead, his eyes followed the bus rolling down the street. He saw a kid, maybe 13, step out in a school uniform, holding a busted laptop. The boy waved to a friend and smiled. Innocent, unbothered by the weight of the world. "I built something that was supposed to give that kid a future," Daniel said. "Now they're using it to line their pockets." Brielle narrowed her eyes. "Then take it back." "How?" "That's your job to figure out." He looked down at his hands, scraped, shaky, but still his. Then, without warning, a black car turned the corner. Brielle tensed. It was a sleek SUV, too clean for this neighborhood. Daniel's breath caught. "Oh no." "What?" she whispered. The back window rolled down slowly, and the face inside made Daniel go pale. That's him, he murmured. Who? My partner, Ethan Wexler. The man who stole everything from him. The man who thought Daniel Whitaker was already dead. The SUV idled at the curb, its tinted window like a dark eye staring through the fog of the morning. Daniel's breath hitched as the man inside tilted his head slightly, recognition flickering across his sharp features. Ethan Wexler, former co-founder, now CEO, and the architect of Daniel's public demise. Brielle could feel Daniel's body stiffen beside her. Do we run? She asked. No, he whispered. If we run, he wins. The back door of the SUV opened. Ethan stepped out slowly, his Italian loafers hitting the cracked sidewalk like the sound of a ticking clock. Impeccably dressed, clean-shaven, eyes hidden behind designer sunglasses. He approached them with a casual arrogance that made Brielle's skin crawl. Well, well, Ethan said with a slow smile. You really are alive. Daniel said nothing. Brielle stepped closer, her arms folded, her stance firm. I almost didn't believe the rumors, Ethan continued, glancing around the alley. Daniel Whitaker, crawling through trash like a ghost. How poetic. Daniel clenched his fists. You had no right to touch my name. My company. I saved your company, Ethan snapped, the facade cracking for just a second. You were spiraling, drinking, lashing out. You were a PR disaster waiting to happen. You made me look like that, Daniel said through gritted teeth. You leaked private medical records, paid off tabloids. You created the spiral. Ethan chuckled and adjusted his sleeves. You always had a flair for drama. Brielle stepped forward. He built that company. You stole it. Ethan finally looked at her, eyebrows raised. And who's this? Your guardian angel. Brielle didn't flinch. I'm someone who knows what loyalty looks like. Something you clearly don't. Ethan ignored her and turned back to Daniel. This doesn't have to get messy. Come back. I'll say you took time for mental recovery. We'll do interviews. Rebrand the fall as a transformation. I'm not your puppet. Then you're roadkill, Ethan said, smile fading into a dangerous scowl. You think people care where you've been? Look at you. You don't have anything. Daniel reached into his back pocket and pulled out the crumpled piece of paper, the note he'd written the night he nearly died. He handed it to Ethan. Ethan read it. Tell them I gave up. For a moment, his confident smirk faltered. That's what you wanted, right? Daniel said. To erase me. Ethan looked up, anger rising. I don't care where you've been or what you've seen. You're finished. You want to try and come back? Fine. But I promise you, by the time I'm done, no one will believe a word you say. And with that, he turned, walked back to the SUV, and drove away. The silence that followed felt heavier than the air itself. Brielle looked at Daniel. You good? He didn't answer. He stared at the street, fists shaking. No more running, he whispered. No more hiding. Later that day, they made their way to a dusty internet cafe. The owner, a middle-aged Nigerian man named Mr. Ajayi, recognized Daniel but said nothing. Daniel logged in using an old burner email. His inbox was a graveyard of unread messages. Shareholders, former employees, journalists, all wondering what happened to the face of Helix Systems. He opened a blank document and began typing. To everyone who believed in me. Brielle watched him work for hours, pouring out everything. What happened with Ethan, the forged documents, the hospital files, the PR traps. By evening, he had a manifesto. The truth. Now all he needed was someone to help him release it. And as they left the cafe, a shadowy figure was waiting by the door. Daniel Whitaker? The man asked. Daniel froze. The man stepped closer, revealing a badge tucked into his jacket. I need to talk to you. It's about Ethan Wexler, and the woman who died 6 months ago after blowing the whistle. Daniel blinked. What woman? The agent's voice dropped. The one who tried to warn you, before she disappeared. Daniel's heart dropped. "What woman?" he repeated, his voice a whisper. The agent glanced around the dimly lit sidewalk before pulling them to the side. Her name was Marissa Eldon, Senior Compliance Analyst. She sent a file directly to your encrypted email. 2 days later, she was found dead in a motel room in San Francisco. Brielle stepped forward. "And you think Ethan had something to do with it?" The agent's jaw tightened. "I can't prove that, but I do know the autopsy was rushed. Toxicology was inconclusive, and every internal Helix document she flagged for fraud vanished after her death." Daniel rubbed his forehead, trying to piece it together. Marissa. Quiet. Brilliant. She had only worked in risk for a year before everything went dark. "She reached out to me," he murmured, "a week before I was pushed out. Said something about misappropriated offshore funds. I thought she was being paranoid." The agent nodded. "She wasn't. We've been tracking irregular financial movement through Helix's Dubai subsidiary. Massive wire transfers to shell corporations. But without internal proof, our hands are tied." Brielle leaned in. "What if we get that proof?" The agent gave her a hard look. "You'd need someone deep inside. Someone with access to level 6 data logs, mirrored servers, backup chains." Daniel's eyes widened. "Lana," he whispered. "Who's Lana?" the agent asked. "She's the only one who stayed loyal. She's the chief of system architecture. If anyone knows where to find those files, it's her." "Then find her," the agent said. "And fast. Because I'm not the only one looking." By the time they reached the edge of Redwood Valley, it was nearly midnight. Lana used to live in a cedarwood house tucked behind rows of sycamores, a quiet retreat she called her sanity zone. Daniel knocked once. No answer. Twice. Still nothing. "Try the back," Brielle said. They circled around. A light flickered in the basement window. Someone was home. Daniel called her name through the vent. "Lana, it's me." "Daniel." The light turned off. "Wait," he shouted. "Please. I know what they did. I know about Marissa." Silence. Then, the door cracked open. Lana peeked out, her face pale and thin. Her hair, once always tied back neatly, now frizzed from neglect. "Dan," she whispered. "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be dead," he said with a half-smile. She pulled him in quickly. "You shouldn't have come. They're watching my server logs. Ever since Marissa died, I haven't slept." Brielle followed, eyes scanning the cluttered living room. Papers. Empty coffee mugs. Router parts scattered like puzzle pieces. Daniel sat down, voice steady. "We need access to the backups. The mirror chains. You kept copies, didn't you?" Lana stared at him. "You don't understand. They know what I have. They've tried to break into my garage twice. The only thing keeping me safe is silence." "We'll protect you," Brielle said. "We have a contact in federal enforcement. This isn't just about you anymore. Marissa gave her life to warn us." Lana looked at them, her eyes darting between fear and courage. She stood and walked toward a locked cabinet beneath her staircase. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Inside was a hard drive. "Oh." Scratched. "This," she whispered, "has everything." Daniel reached out, but she pulled it back. "If we use this, there's no going back," she said. "They'll come after all of us." "I know," Daniel said, "but I'm done running." She handed it to him. Just as the garage light outside flickered on, Brielle rushed to the window. 2 men in dark clothes, one with a crowbar, the other holding a phone to his ear. "They found us," she said. Lana's face turned white. "You have to go. Take the back fence. There's a trail that leads to the next block." Daniel grabbed her hand. "Come with us." But she shook her head. "If I disappear, they'll know I helped. I can buy you 5 minutes. No more. Lana, go. Daniel stuffed the hard drive into his coat as they climbed through the basement window and dashed into the darkness. Behind them, they heard the sound of the front door being kicked in. Then Lana's scream. Daniel stopped running. No, he whispered. We can't leave her. Brielle grabbed his arm. We don't have a choice. If we lose that drive, she sacrificed everything for nothing. Daniel looked back at the house. Smoke was rising, and suddenly there was an explosion. The explosion rocked the street. Flames burst from the side of Lana's garage, sending a mushroom of smoke curling into the night sky. Daniel dropped to his knees in the alley, eyes fixed on the burning home. Lana, he choked. Brielle yanked him back, her grip iron-tight. Daniel, we can't go back. If they see us, they'll kill us too. Tears welled in his eyes, mixing with the soot and sweat. He looked down at the coat, where the hard drive throbbed like a second heartbeat. Then we finish what she started, he said, standing. They raced down the alley, melting into the shadows, as sirens screamed in the distance. By dawn, they had made it to a safe house Daniel once used back in his early days with Helix, an old auto shop converted into a hacker den. Dusty, cluttered, but still wired to the grid. Daniel pried open the drive, hooked it to an ancient terminal, and stared at the blinking cursor. Come on, Lana, he whispered. Tell me you left a way in. It asked for a passphrase. He paused, then typed. Marissa never forgot. Access granted. Brielle leaned in. What is it? The screen blinked, then populated line by line. Transaction histories, wire transfers, fake vendors, internal memos, all linked to an operation code named Project Ivory. At the heart of it was Ethan Sorrell, a network of fake humanitarian projects in West Africa, supposedly building clinics and wells, none of which existed. The funds were funneled into offshore accounts, buried under layers of legal misdirection. This, Brielle breathed, this could take down half the executive board. And Ethan. Daniel's jaw set. Especially Ethan. But the deeper they dug, the worse it got. Beneath the financial lies were darker files, one marked Sundown Protocol. Daniel opened it. At first, it looked like a security directive, but then he read the language. Nova again. You better see this, she said. The screen showed donations pouring into a fund titled The Marissa Initiative. Thousands, then tens of thousands. A movement had begun. Not just justice, but change. Daniel looked up at the skyline, but just as he started to exhale, a black car pulled up. The window rolled down. Inside sat a woman in a white coat. Her badge read, Department of National Security. Mr. Whitaker, she said calmly, we need to talk. Daniel narrowed his eyes. About what? About who's really been funding Helix from the beginning. What you thought was the end was only the beginning. Daniel stared at the woman from the Department of National Security, her cold gaze steady from inside the black SUV. Her badge glinted in the morning sun like a warning. Get in, she said. Brielle placed a hand on Daniel's arm. You don't have to go. Not alone. But Daniel had seen enough in the last few days to know when a story wasn't over. He nodded to Brielle, squeezed her hand, and stepped into the car. The interior was eerily silent. The agent, Claire Voss, slid him a sealed folder. This is classified at the highest level. You've kicked a hornet's nest, Mr. Whitaker, and it's bigger than you think. Daniel opened it slowly. Inside were documents linking Helix Corp's earliest funding not to private investors, but to a covert U.S. Black Ops program known as Project Edenlight. The files detailed experiments in neurological warfare, psychological manipulation, and behavioral engineering. And at the center of it all, Ethan Sorrell's father, William Sorrell, declared dead in 2002, but now listed as missing. Not dead. Missing. Ethan didn't just inherit a company, Claire said. He inherited a legacy, one built on mind control, population surveillance, and global manipulation. Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. How deep does this go? Claire exhaled. We believe Helix was just a front. The real operation, the true experiments, are being conducted at undisclosed facilities across South America and the Balkans. She handed him a photo. A rural compound, surrounded by guards, barbed wire, and in the corner, Lana, alive, inside. What the hell is this? Daniel demanded. Claire leaned in. You wanted truth? You found it. Now we need you to help us bring it down. Daniel's hands shook. You used me to expose Ethan. She nodded. And now we need you to expose the rest. You know the system. You've already lit the fuse. Daniel looked at the photo again. His voice was sharp. What happens to Brielle? To Nova? They're being protected, Claire said. You're the only one whose name is still missing from the public records. Daniel sat back. His mind raced with fear, anger, purpose. He remembered Aiden's broken body, Lana's bruised face, Marissa's final text. He couldn't run from this anymore. I'll do it, he said. But I'm not doing it as a ghost. I'm doing it as Daniel Whitaker. Claire smirked. Then let's get to work. 2 months later, the compound in the Brazilian rainforest was cloaked in fog and secrets. Daniel moved like a shadow between tents, wired with a body cam. Claire's team watched from a remote outpost. Inside the lab, children, sat wired to machines, eyes dull and dazed. Daniel's voice crackled in the comms. They're experimenting on kids. This is beyond Helix. He found Lana in a containment room, too weak to stand. But when she saw him, really saw him, she whispered through cracked lips. I knew you'd find me. He smiled through the tears. Always. He carried her out as alarms blared. Gunfire erupted. But the world would finally see what Helix really was. 3 weeks later, the footage aired globally, leaked through Nova's network. Governments fell. Protests ignited. The world demanded accountability. Daniel stood in front of a global tribunal, no longer a fugitive, no longer a scapegoat, but a witness, a survivor, and a fighter. He looked into the cameras and said, the price of silence is paid in human lives. Never again. In a quiet cabin in Oregon, Daniel and Lana sat side by side. She had recovered, stronger now, both in body and in spirit. Brielle visited often. Nova's network had expanded worldwide. Claire Voss disappeared. Some say she never existed. Others say she still watches, waiting for Daniel's next call. As the sun dipped below the pines, Lana leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder. You think it's over? She asked. Daniel smiled softly. No, but now we know how to fight. Life lesson. The truth doesn't die in the dark. It waits. For the brave. For the broken. For someone willing to risk everything so the world can finally see.